Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Welcome to the regular school board meeting for February of 2020. And please let the record show that all board members are present this evening. And we'll have first visitor comments. If there are any visitors tonight who would like to address the board, we ask you to come to the podium, state your name, and let us know what you got.
Good evening, everybody. I think all of you guys saw me here last month when I spoke about the band, and I'm very happy to be here again. As somebody commented, I'm beginning to become a regular here, so I'll be back, I'm sure.
Name again, please.
Colby Wicker
Thank you.
is my name. And I'm a senior here at the high school. I was the drum major for the marching band. I'm the president of Key Club, French Honor Society, and National Honor Society. And the reason I feel like it's important for me to say all these things is for you guys to know that I'm really involved here, and that what I'm about to talk to you guys about is something that's really important to me and really important to, I think, a lot of students. And so the reason I'm here is twofold. Firstly, I want the community and everybody here and everybody who may watch later on CATS, which is a wonderful service, I'm really glad that we have that, is that I am proposing a drug policy that I think will be more fiscally sound for our corporation, more constitutionally sound, and more safe for the students that are here. And I'm proposing a shift from a random drug testing to probable cause, where if there's reasonable suspicion to believe that you have been using drugs, you should be tested. And I wholeheartedly believe that, but a random test I don't feel like is the best course forward for our corporation. But that's all I'm really going to say about that. I want you guys here and the people at home to do the research on that, and we'll continue to have a discussion about that. And I would appreciate if we would add that to the agenda for a future meeting, if we could have more community discussion about it, and you guys could speak about it as a board. I think it's something important that we should really consider. But as for the second part of why I'm here, I've spoken with 3 of the board members already and Dr. Sanders, and everybody I've spoken to has been absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate everybody speaking to me about it. You guys have been really, really gracious to meet with me even, and you guys have listened to all my points and given me your rebuttals, and I've tried to counter them to the best of my ability, and I'm still trying to do that for some of you. And Mr. Kerr, I'm meeting with you on Wednesday, and I'm really excited about that. And Mr. Journal, I hope we can set up a meeting soon. I'd love to speak with you. But just outside of that, I really do just want to thank you guys for everything that you guys do, and I hope we can work together to make a better drug testing policy for me and my friends and for the future of this corporation. So thank you.
Colby, I sent you an email back.
Okay,
About
wonderful.
some time, so you just take
Okay.
a look at it and let me know.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colby.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Are there any other visitors who'd like to address the board tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on. We have approval of minutes. We have 4 meetings: the January 6th organizational meeting, the January 16th work session, the January 21st Board of Finance meeting, and also the January 21st regular board meeting. We have a motion.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Any questions on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have the business manager report, Mr. Irwin.
You guys should have the 3 papers in front of you as normal. Happy to show that we had some good results there through January. Numbers ended well. You'll see at the bottom there is the February ADM count of where our numbers landed there. That was a positive thing as well compared to last year. I know Dr. Sanders reported out on that at the previous meeting as far as comparably where we were a year ago. So numbers continue to look good. Also updated the basic grant state tuition and the projections through that, and that's based on that ADM number, and kind of staying flat through that and not projecting anything above that or way above it or anything like that. That kind of proves, you can kind of look at that year-end number of what we're trying to project out. That's the importance of continuing to build those cash balances. So, moving on to the operations, similar, staying steady there. Numbers ended where we want them to be. February will kind of be that first true month where we have those normal 2 pays to kind of see where those numbers land, and that'll help really dictate some of those projections and making sure that we close in on those even more. So.
All right. Anything further? Any questions?
What was our enrollment in February 19? Remember?
February of 19.
February 19, this time last year, remember?
I'd have to look back
How
at
much
the
increase
numbers.
we've had?
Let me think about that for a second. We had, I think we are up, I want to say 80 from a year ago. Because we were up 60 from September 2019. So we're up 60. And then when we lost a number of students, 138 students in September 2018, we lost 2 more, or 20 more by the February count.
Okay.
So I would say approximately.
Okay.
Moving in a good direction.
Okay. Anything further? Okay. Now we have the treasurer's report for January of 2020. Do we have a motion?
I move approval. I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on the report? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have presentation of claims for approval. Mr. Durnall.
Thank you, sir. I move approval for gross wages on January the 3rd, 2020, for gross wages for mini payroll on January the 6th, 2020, for gross wages on the January the 17th, 2020, for gross wages mini payroll on 1/18 of 2020, and gross wages on 1/31, 2020, for a grand total of $1,817,810.39. Also, claims prepays 1/20 to 1/31, and vouchers on 2/17 is 2020, and claims Forest Hills vouchers for 2/18 to 2020 for a grand total of $4,751,654.36 for a grand total, excuse me for saying grand too many times, $6,569,464.75. I'd recommend approval.
Any questions on the claims? Comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Robin, for my notes.
And now the Mustang moment. Dr. Sanders?
Absolutely. The Mustang moment, I think that's why it's so popular for the board and all of us up here, is that it's really a chance for us to celebrate our students and their accomplishments, and to be able to hear from them and see them face to face. And so tonight we have our representatives from the Edgewood Junior High School, and their principal, Mr. Sieglin, is going to make the introductions tonight.
Thank you. Nobody warned me about Miss Jones when I took this job, but seriously though, she's one of our sixth grade social studies teachers. She's a very outside the box thinker. She does a lot as far as being a student-centered teacher, making sure that students have a voice, and so she facilitates that and makes sure that they communicate their thoughts kind of on what they need to be successful in the classroom. And so this project is a result of that. I'm not sure if you saw the article in the HT a while ago, but Emily wrote a nice article about this project for us. So I'll introduce Ms. Jones so she can introduce her students.
Thank you. Outside the box, kind of, yeah. I think there are more of us who are thinking outside the box these days, but this project actually got started about this time last year. We were in the Renaissance unit, which is all about questioning the status quo. Of course, legally, Mr. Durnall, but challenging the way things are to make them better. And so it, I think, started some students thinking about the classroom, and I was brought all kinds of YouTube videos about how technology has revolutionized the world except for the setup of the classroom. And so at that point, I suggested, well, change works when you take it up the ladder. I'm only one voice, and I'll sit there with you, but you've got to make your case. And so that got the ball rolling, and they kept saying, I told them to start thinking about the whys, then why nots. And they said, well, why does the classroom have to look like this? And I said, I don't know. I don't have data that shows it's more effective. And I told them, bring me your ideas, and gave them Tinkercad. It's a software program where they could build designs. And the one thing that they had in common was this flexible seating idea. And so last year's 7th graders, well, this is how the standard classroom was looking. And so I got a little ahead of myself. So we've already gone through this slide. But the Tinkercad designs came in, and it all had flexible seating. And I thought all along the students were saying, wanted to proceed, but I told them that this likely wouldn't get done the year that they had. And they were very generous in the way that they proceeded, diligently working on it for next year's class, which is our current 6th graders, to leave something better than how they found it anyway. So this is how our classroom looks today. We have lots of flexible seating. We picked up I make my husband do things. And so he built a high table, and we got Uptown to donate some stools. They were getting rid of their old stools, and so they gave them to my husband, who is he's a very persuasive person. So you can see those in the bottom left hand. That's the high table, and then we picked up some coffee tables from IU Surplus, and we just kind of pulled things together to make it something. And I had my husband work hard to get the high table at least done before I can't remember what break it was, but last year's class got to come back to that, so that because of their generosity, I wanted them to experience something. And so they had that, and then they just kept building upon it. And it not only sort of revolutionized the classroom, but that spills out into different areas like voice and choice in the assessment. Their final assessment consisted of standards, and they got to pick which standards they wanted to showcase and how they were going to do it. And I think Megan made a video about that was one of her ideas, and it just was wonderful. And I always think that it is, when you can turn it over to kids, your students, that's the best, because they're equipped. It's kind of like being a parent too, when you see them just go out and thrive, and it's the best part of teaching. So I am going to introduce Leah and Megan, and they're going to talk about the process as they were 6th graders and now 7th graders.
Hello, I'm Megan.
And I'm Leah. So something we found last year was when we were creating the classroom, it helped us have a better bond with Ms. Jones, because when you're helping your teacher make a big decision like this, it really makes you get closer with her. And I feel now that I'm more likely to tell her about things going on in our school than most other teachers. We also found that you're more likely to raise your hand when you're sitting around with people, like you have flexible seating.
When students are presented a classroom that is more comfortable and relaxed than beforehand, they are more likely to be involved in the lesson, they're going to raise their hands more, and they want to be ready and awake for the lesson. When I see my classmates participating and being awake and feeling comfortable and having a good time, I usually think to myself, I want to do that too. So imagine a chain reaction in the other classrooms, and how it's going to be more homey and a more interactive environment for them. It's going to be more comfortable.
We also found that you get to know your classmates. We're going to be with our class for a pretty long time, going through junior high and high school, so I thought, why not get to know them now? So we also found that students who normally wouldn't want to work in groups, they are more likely to because we have the flexible seating and you're talking to more people.
Presentations, especially for shyer students, are usually not one of the most favorite things in the classroom. So we can change that by bringing our idea to life. It allows students to feel less pressured when they see their other classmates feeling comfortable as well, and it's better for their presentation grades as well. Overall, it's better, socially it's better for the students. And then we're going to pass this on.
I'd like to ask Austin to come up.
Hi, my name is Austin Lanham, 6th grader. So, at the beginning of the year, we walked into the classroom and we were awestruck. We saw this room with all of this new seating and we were amazed. I had these thoughts like, who did all of this and why is this here? We felt right at home. We sat in a chair, and we just had a great time on our first day there. So the room just gave a very good sense of peacefulness, and it made us think we really had a fresh start and gives us good hopes for the future. So those are a lot of reactions that a lot of kids had first walking into this room this year. So.
And Drayden.
I'm Drayden Snyder, a 6th grader, and basically the classroom is all about impact, and the classroom makes us feel very comfortable because of the free seating choice. Like maybe you have like problems with your back or something and you want to sit on like a chair, or maybe you just want to sit on the floor. It gives you the choice of where you want to sit, and making you feel included also has a big part because everybody's not just sitting in rows where someone's in the back and someone's in the front. Everyone's equally spread out, so it's not like anyone's going to get more attention, and the teacher's going to listen to everyone's thoughts. And giving chances for new friends and new members of your friend groups, because having the free seating allows more people to come in. Like, for example, me and my friend group were sitting at a table, and there was an extra spot, and another girl walked up that we hadn't even known went to this school, and she sat down, and now we're actually pretty good friends, all because of Miss Jones's classroom and the free seating choice. And like Leah and Megan, we intend to leave our footstep on this classroom and leave something different for the next 6th graders to come. And yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the big deal here, is that they all sort of have this idea of leaving it better next. And I can see this going on and on and on, so open your pocketbooks, because they have ideas. So this is what they have, in order to sort of share their ideas on what they wanted for the classroom. I got a lot of classroom pets. I don't know how we're going to make that happen, but they are sharing slides. They just initiated. They had one person in charge of it, and that person is collecting all the slides together. These two students let me share theirs tonight. I like how they're thinking, and they're also thinking not only about the design and unlimited funds, but how to raise the funds. So that's part of this process as well. And it's an ongoing thing. And then I guess that's all for us tonight. We thank you for having us tonight, and thank you guys for coming. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for coming and sharing with us.
Yes, thank you very much.
I have a quick question. How would you make this boardroom more? Because it's like, man, this isn't very comfortable. You guys are walking on the front row, we're like staring at you.
I'd be interested to know the process you went through. I don't want you to have to go through
Yeah,
it tonight, but I'm
right.
interested to know how you came to those conclusions that would work like that, so.
And also, is there a fight every day for certain seats? Or does everybody pick a
I
seat?
can say no. I've never had to settle a fight. And when I got the coffee tables, I thought that's going to be the last place they want to sit. And it's full every day. So, and we don't have a seating chart, so they come in and sit where they want that day. And it did have a side effect I didn't intend, which was I really got to know them quicker because I didn't have that seating chart to fall back on. So,
So this goes on, all your classes have this seating?
yes.
Wonderful.
Can you imagine being a 6th or 7th grader doing a presentation to your school board?
Oh, my.
I just can't imagine.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And this year, we've been, through Ready Schools, we've been talking a lot about building and integrating into our curriculum opportunities for our students to practice those soft skills that they're going to need when they graduate from high school and go on to whatever they want to do in life. And so putting together a presentation, getting up and speaking to us is just great practice for them. And as they continue to do that, I mean, they're just in 6th and 7th grade, as they continue to do that throughout the rest of their school career here at Edgewood, then when they go off to college and they're having to make presentations in class, it's going to be like a been there, done that, and they're going to have a lot more confidence. So you guys did an awesome job.
Pretty amazing.
I'm still scared coming in here and talking in front of people, so maybe I'll get used to it one day. But again, thank you so much. Now we have the Ready Schools update.
Yes, so last summer, we informed the board that we received the ROI Ready Schools Planning Grant, and we've been very busy this school year working with our design team and our EWAT team. And so Jamie Miller, who is our readiness, what's your title?
I love that. Jamie Miller, District Readiness Coordinator.
Readiness, what is it?
District Readiness Coordinator.
I'm sorry, I get all those words.
He's on your mind, he's on
Yeah.
his mind all the
Out
time.
of
Hey, Ray, I'm really excited about it being here. How's
You're
that for an
right.
introduction?
That's it. Jamie Miller, District Readiness Coordinator. So the Mustang moment has to be the best spot to follow them because every time I come up here, I want to just say, that's why. That's what we're trying to do. I enjoy that so much. I'm so glad we've integrated it. It might be the only reason I keep agreeing to come back and share with you guys because I too get nervous every time. And so they have big shoes to fill. But just as an update where we're at with Ready Schools in the process, it always comes back to these 6 core principles. Everything we're doing through Ready Schools is intended to align to these. So just creating those pathways for success and ensuring that every single student has a pathway, that every student, the ultimate goal of Ready Schools is that we can confidently say every graduate leaves with a plan. It doesn't have to be the same plan as the student sitting next to them, but every student leaves confident with a plan, whether that's college or a career or the military, whatever it is. We're just creating these experiences so that they know with confidence they're leaving to do something that they want to engage in and that they can contribute to our community doing so. So in this process, we are well over halfway now already. So kind of as a quick recap through discovery and synthesis, really the information gathering phases in the fall, we did a lot of information gathering. Over 2,500 interviews, be it digitally, electronically, in person, over the phone. We arrived at 95 different themes. Some of those transcended all of our stakeholder groups. Some were unique to students or staff. But 95 different themes, conclusions that really led to these need statements where everything we were doing was trying to arrive at what can we do better, what can we expand on, what can we change, how do we better meet the needs of our students, our families, and our community as a whole, as a school district? And all of that would continue to be synthesized and refined down to these 10 how might we questions. And I don't intend for you to be able to read these here. I'm happy to share them again in hard copy or email, but these 10 really rich questions across career development, how we're communicating with all of our stakeholders, the culture we're building, curricular decisions, how we're using innovative spaces, which that was a perfect example from the junior high. These 10 questions are what are going to drive everything we decide through Ready Schools this spring. So now we're in this third phase of ideation, where we're taking all of that information we gathered in the fall. We've crafted these how might we questions, and we're starting really what's the fun part, the exciting part is we're trying to identify strategies. We're trying to identify resources that we need to put in place, great things that are happening in each of our buildings that maybe need to be happening in the other buildings, ways to better align our initiatives, PK-12. So through this, the deliverable that we'll have here within the next week or two is a real global picture of the strategies. We have that design team in place of district leaders representing every building that are really vetting a lot of these strategies and ideas and representing their own groups of students and staff and families to ensure that each of our schools are represented throughout the design process. So this systems approach, the systems thinking, a lot of different, through every phase really, systems thinking protocols are just a way to ensure that we're not just aligning to those core principles, but we're aligning to our district plan and our district vision for all of our schools. So through that, this is just one example of one of the how might we questions. This one was aligned to career awareness and how we're finding ways, just as Dr. Sanders actually mentioned, to embed those soft skills, those presentation and collaboration and critical thinking skills into every content area, whether it's an English language arts classroom or a social studies classroom or a PE classroom. And from there, the design team started building out these strategies down below, just very raw notes, examples of how we are creating lists on lists of strategies to meet each of these different how might we's. And then we're just finding ways to continue aligning strategies. So for example, another how might we with career paths and aligning that career awareness with the actual industry partners that are here in our community. So we're not just doing what we think is best because it's a buzzword, but because it actually ties to our workforce right here in South Central Indiana. So anything from field trips to building out a more robust network of community partners. Our intern program is a piece that keeps coming up in conversations really with every stakeholder group, something that we know we want to expand on and build out really even earlier than those upper class grades in high school. So just a couple more examples of these how might we questions, one related to our school culture, but also the community around us beyond our schools, different ideas that the design team and each of the building staff are putting out. And the neat thing about ideation is that there's no idea that's too big. There's no idea that's too expansive. And then, of course, we have to refine again. So we do a lot of flaring and building out every idea possible and looking at every possibility and then refining again. And then we go through that same cycle in an iterative way. So then even our advisory team, we meet, Dr. Sanders and I meet with a team of community partners here in person through every phase to share these ideas out and get their feedback. So just another example of a feedback protocol where we're going through and getting different types of feedback from our community partners. So something that they really honed in on was a student-run business, some sort of enterprise that our students could run to, again, build those same soft skills. And then refinement is really the last phase here this spring before we apply for implementation funding through ROI. So we'll bring out the best solutions, again, in that kind of post-flare refine stage. And we'll just look for the strategies that align PK-12 the best, but also are as reasonable and viable and just financially possible, quite honestly, as we continue to build out a real strategic plan. So the other neat thing about Ready Schools is that we're not just going to create a grant proposal as a deliverable. We'll actually create here just in the next few weeks a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. We're going to show how everything we've done over the past few years is evolving, ways we've used the funding from RDC and other funding sources to really align everything we're doing so that all of these pillars, all of these pieces fit together within this strategic plan to build out then another 3 to 5 year plan for the district. So just an example of the driving question that'll drive this next phase. How might we translate the ideas and goals that we've generated into this strategic plan? So we'll create a prototype, basically a broad summary of our plan to start sharing out with stakeholders and get feedback so that then we can continue to build that and again refine it into a pretty robust strategic plan. And then of course the detailed grant proposal that Dr. Sanders and myself and a team will present in May to ROI's board of community partners to hopefully be approved for implementation funding. So from there, implementation is pretty self-explanatory. That's just where we get to enact our plan beginning in the fall, which is really exciting. So what questions do you have? I know I always talk too fast.
Question?
Thank you. You did a wonderful job, and that was shown right here with these kids right here.
They're the reason we're doing it. They're amazing.
I love the work that the community is doing involved, the business leaders and other folks that are involved in this. Seems like, there's always, this is education, this is business, this is government, whatever. And then now the way that they're being able to merge together, kind of like that, a village to raise a child kind of thing. It's the community to educate the children. And so I really appreciate all the hard work that you and everyone else is putting in on this. It's awesome.
Likewise. And it's worth mentioning, the handful of kids that get to come present to you all for the Mustang moment have the confidence. Those skills are already being fostered in them. They are the courageous ones that want to share and want to advocate for themselves. We need to just find a way to make sure that those experiences are being had by every single one of our students. And that's really what Ready Schools is about. So.
And it's been fun so far. When you can brainstorm and just generate ideas, that's the fun part. Now, over the next few weeks, we have to narrow that down and make some tough decisions on what are we going to do for implementation. But we have a great group of people involved, and they're really fun to work with.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
So are you saying this is all going to go to the ROI committee in May?
Mm-hmm.
Then we will know in June, July?
Ideally, yes.
Okay. And what you're seeing thus far, is it going to be a continuation of the good things we've got going already and just expounding upon those, or is it going to
I've been
I know
assuring
it's not there yet.
the building staffs of that.
Okay.
It will not be we're not revolutionizing what we're doing. Really, for us, as compared with other schools who have gone through the same process in earlier cohorts, we're in a really fortunate position because of our partnership with the RDC that we've put a lot of these pieces in place. We just haven't scaled them PK-12. So there are amazing things happening that I don't always even know about in each of the buildings. And we are trying to help each building benefit from what the others are doing and creating that alignment so that what each building is doing, there's not redundancy, but there isn't a gap either. So scaling initiatives district-wide and just building, like you said, expounding on what we're already doing well at, but also finding ways to make sure we're not spinning our wheels or pouring our efforts into initiatives that aren't showing the benefit in our classrooms for our students or our teachers. So we're looking at ways to support the teachers just as much as we are the students, ways to build out teacher PD and teacher learning so that they can pour into the students in the same way. So there are amazing things happening in every one of our schools. We just have to be more intentional about showcasing that among ourselves, but also to our community to, just like Mr. Kerr said, to build build upon the partnerships that we already have, but also, again, be more intentional about what partnerships we're putting our energy into.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Several times you mentioned the RDC, just so people know, that's the Monroe County Redevelopment Commission. They have been so generous with us, and we have a grant with them that basically was a great catalyst for STEM and STEAM. And the partnership that we have with the Redevelopment Commission has been excellent. They've really provided some foundational support that really allowed us to launch, and maybe they can help us with the Ready Schools as well. So,
Absolutely. Thank you.
thank you. Okay. All right, wonderful things going on. We got some more donations.
Yes. We have quite a few tonight. So the first three I could really group together. They are all donations for a new scoreboard at the baseball field. $12,500 from Scott Mingy, $5,000 from VPS Architect, and $5,000 from Strasser Construction. We also have a donation of a small refrigerator to the nurses clinic at the junior high from Cindy Holtz to store medication. We have $1,000 from the German American Bank for our student assistance program. $616 from Donors Choose for flexible seat options for Mrs. Butler's kindergarten classroom, and $467.36 also from Donors Choose for flexible seat options and Hand to Mine versatile math set for Mrs. Truax's classroom. I recommend your approval.
I move approval.
Moved and seconded. And I believe that Mr. Mingy indicated in the board packet that it was kind of also representative of a lot of the sports alumni from Edgewood from that time period. So we appreciate all their collective support on that as well. Any further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Neola policy updates, Dr. Sanders.
Okay, so just for people at home who might not know, many school corporations, and RBB is one of them, contracts with an organization called Neola. And Neola is made up of attorneys that monitor changes in state and federal law as they pertain to education. And so we have a number of policies that we are presenting tonight for first reading. I sent the board those policies and the markups, and today I sent you a summary, which I should have sent with the markups, but I didn't realize that they were not included. So I would just like to beg your patience tonight. I would just like to go through and name each of these policies and just say a little blurb about them. Policy, and you have them in front of you if you want to look at it. So for volume 31, number 2, beginning on page 6, policy 2261, 2261.01, and policy 2281 are all related to Title I services and are revisions that are based on the Early Student Succeeds Act of 2015. Policy 2623.01, it refers to test security provisions for statewide assessments, and basically these revisions reduce the hours that staff members may have access to secure testing materials prior to the test, and also provisions for reporting and investigating allegations of cheating or a security breach. Policy 5330.02, care for students with diabetes. The revisions here reflect the current requirements of Indiana law specific to students with diabetes regarding preparation and implementation of a diabetes management and treatment plan. Policy 5335, care for students with chronic health conditions. These revisions are a policy that differentiates between those students who are entitled to receive a free, appropriate public education and those who are not, but still have chronic health conditions to which this policy applies. Policy 5341, emergency medical authorization. The revisions here reflect the distinction between a do not resuscitate order and a physician's order for scope of treatment. The latter, which permits certain actions to be taken for patients under the age of 18 that are not permitted by DNRs. Policy 5410, promotion, placement, and retention. These revisions reflect the possible determinations and appropriate actions that a school corporation may make concerning students who fail to pass the IREAD 3 assessment. Policy 6144, investment income. These revisions reflect the current requirements of Indiana law specific to school corporation investments. Policy 6145 is short-term indebtedness. These revisions reflect changes in Indiana law to the definition of public work and the procedure for borrowing funds for such projects as well as the changes in the names of funds used for budgeting purposes. Policy 6220, budget preparation, reflect the changes in school funding under Indiana law. This policy has been revised to reflect the changes in the names of funds in the policy. Policy 6325, procurement, federal grant funds. These revisions are a response to issuance of a memorandum M-18-18 by the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, raising the financial thresholds in several categories of procurement utilizing federal funds. Policy 6605, crowdfunding. Is recommended, these policies are recommended to reveal an emphasis that needs to be added to the policy to address the importance of privacy protection for students. Language is also proposed so that the corporation maintains appropriate fiscal safeguards for crowdfunding. Policy 7530.01V1, Cell Phone Alliance. These revisions are the result of changes to the federal tax code. If the stipend paid to an employee for the use of his or her personal communication device is to be tax-free, then the employee must pay more for his or her service than he or she is reimbursed by the corporation. Policy 8121, personal background check. This is a policy in response to Senate Enrollment Act 303, which made the expanded child protection background checks in states other than Indiana optional for school corporations under Indiana Code 20-26-5-10. Policy 8210, school calendar. This policy has been revised to reflect updated citations and current state law, which does not permit collective bargaining regarding the number of days in a school year. Policy 8500, food services program. Requires that money placed into a student's individual meal account should not become income for the nutrition services program until the student goes through the lunch line and charges a meal to their account. And policy 8600, transportation. Revisions to this policy have been proposed to incorporate the requirements of Indiana Code 9-19-10-2 regarding the use of seatbelts by occupants in vehicles, including school buses that are equipped with seatbelts. All right. Take a breath. Volume 32, number 1. Bylaw 0151.1, Board of Finance of the RBB School Corporation. The legislation passed during the 2019 legislative session that requires the superintendent to prepare a report which assesses the financial condition of the school corporation and shares it with the Board of Finance during its annual meeting, which we did in January. Policy 1520, employment of administrators in addition to the superintendent. Senate Enrolled Act 281 changes the contract terms for contracts with principals and assistant principals and puts limits on contract buyouts for administrative contracts. Policy 1520.08, policy 3120.08, policy 4120.08, policy 8120, and policy 8455 all have to do with extracurricular activities, and these revisions are in response to the House Enrolled Act 1209, which added new sections to the Indiana Code regarding high school athletic association, coaching certification, background checks, and reports required to be made to the IHSAA for certain inappropriate behavior by coaches. Policy 3220.01, teacher appreciation grants. This policy has been revised to include changes to the teacher appreciation grant by House Enrolled Act 1001, including the option to set aside up to 20% of the total grant received as a supplemental payment to teachers with less than 5 years of service who are rated as effective or highly effective. We chose not to exercise that option. Policy 3220.02, supplemental payments for teachers. This policy is reflective of revisions to House Enrolled Act 1002. This new legislation adds one more optional category of a teacher who may receive a supplemental payment. This added option increases the categories of teachers who may receive a supplemental payment for three categories to 4 categories. Policy 5111, determination of legal settlement and eligibility for enrollment of students without legal settlement in the corporation. These revisions reflect options for parents, adult students, and juvenile courts conducting certain proceedings to elect to extend the date of a student's withdrawal from the corporation to the end of the semester, and the corporation's option to elect to extend the date of the student's withdrawal from the corporation to the end of the school year. Policy 5111.01, homeless students. These revisions address the changes made by Senate Enrolled Act 464, particularly training required for staff regarding homeless students. Policy 5223, release time for religious instruction. These revisions reflect new provisions found in Senate Enrolled Act 373, which makes available an option for a school corporation to provide high school students with credit for coursework completing during the release time for religious instruction. Policy 5335, care of students with chronic health conditions. The revisions include examples of chronic health conditions and to incorporate the training on seizure disorders required by House Enrolled Act 1089. Policy 5600, student discipline. These revisions reflect 2018 legislation in House Enrolled Act 1421 pertaining to development of a model policy on equitable discipline. Policy 5610, suspension and expulsion of students. These revisions were made because of Senate Enrolled Act 29 pertaining to the requirement that students complete work during periods of suspension and expulsion, and providing an option for allowing students to complete tests, quizzes missed during suspension and expulsion. Policy 6220, budget preparation. These revisions are in response to the House Enrolled Act 1003. If a school corporation passes a school safety referendum, these newly developed budget funds should be added to the budget preparation process and are being added as options to the budget preparation policy. Policy 6230, budget hearing, has been revised in response to House Enrolled Act 1003, which now requires the superintendent to disclose the annual budget hearing, at the annual budget hearing, whether the transfer from the education fund to the operations fund will be more than 15%. Policy 6520, payroll deductions. This policy has been revised in response to Act 99, Senate Enrolled Act 99. An additional deduction that may be made on an employer's paycheck has been passed into law. Therefore, an option has been added to the policy template. Policy 7300, disposition of real property. This policy was revised due to House Enrolled Act 1641, which amended Indiana Code 20-26-7-1 and added Indiana Code 20-26-7.1 as a new chapter regarding vacant property and making it available to charter schools. Policy 7440.03, I know you're going to be interested in this one. Small unmanned aircraft systems, which the policy prohibits that. Thank goodness. Policy 8310, public records. These are changes as a result of House Enrolled Act 1629. The House Enrolled Act sets the statutory provisions for charging fees for time spent searching electronic records in response to a request for public records. Policy 8400, school safety, revises to include provisions pertaining to school safety specialists and incorporates the changes in the new law made by House Enrolled Act 1063. We're almost done. Policy 8405, environmental health and safety issues, indoor air quality, animals in the classroom, and idling vehicles on school property. The revisions to this policy incorporate the changes in the law made by Senate Enrolled Act 632 regarding radon testing and to ensure compliance with best practices by requiring the corporation to comply with Indiana State Department of Health's manual of best practices for managing indoor quality at schools. Policy 8420, emergency preparedness plans and drills. These revisions are in response to House Enrolled Act 1004, which revises state law on school safety in respect to disaster drills, including the requirement to conduct an active shooter drill near the beginning of the school year. Policy 8462, child abuse and neglect. These policy revisions are made to clarify that school personnel are required to notify the Department of Child Services if child abuse or neglect is suspected. And then policy 8600, transportation. This policy has been revised to reflect changes in the state law pertaining to school bus safety made by Senate Enrolled Act 2 and the current state law on the use of school buses. I know that took a lot of time, but I wanted to put on record the policy revisions that we will be considering. If you would like to ask me a question on any of these policies, or call me over the next few weeks, and in March we'll be putting it on the school board meeting agenda to approve these policies.
Thank you very much. Next item is consideration of resolution to transfer amount from the education fund to the operations fund, one of the policies.
I'm going to take a breath and hand this over.
So I included for you guys a little memo that explained this. Transfer resolution is something that we'll need to do each year with the changes to the fund structure that they did about a year ago in 2019. And as he had previously mentioned, if you recall from some of the stuff in there, there's that 15% rule. So we set a limit amount on there. And that is we expect to stay under that number. It stays within that guideline set by the state. Right now, we currently have it set to transfer about $180 a month, but it allows us that flexibility to move that based on need as we move through the year. If there's a need for us to transfer more, or if there's a need for us to transfer less, so it just allows us that flexibility.
So do we have a motion on the resolution?
I'll move approval.
A second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now consideration to approve the Kelly Services contract. Dr. Sanders?
Okay. RBB is not alone in the fact that we struggle to find enough substitute teachers. We, in the past, have worked hard to recruit substitute teachers in various ways. And in fact, even though we're proposing this tonight, it's not going to start until the start of the school year. So we actually sent an advertisement to the paper today that will run for 5 days, that will try to encourage some people to come in to apply to be a substitute teacher. And we're also going to conduct a social media blitz because the need is now, and we can't wait till really fall. But we've done a lot of work really over the last couple of years considering the possibility of using Kelly Services. I've sat through a number of presentations. They've been very good to, even though they've come before and made presentations to us, they come back and they're very helpful. We wanted to make sure that this was the right choice. We tried to take some other measures to build up our substitute teacher pool, and I really felt at the beginning of the school year we had seemed like a large number of people come in, and Robin could testify to that, who signed up to be substitute teachers. But like a lot of substitute teachers, and my wife was one of them, she found that she just could not keep the steady work, and a lot of people want a steady paycheck, and other people are looking for jobs that have benefits. So as this year progressed, and I witnessed different times during the school year where we had to, a teacher was out, we could not get a sub, so we had to divide those kids up into the other classrooms. I was in my office meeting with a couple of our principals, and one of the principal's secretaries called and said that a sub that they anticipated coming did not show up. And so she had to reassign staff who would normally have been working individually with students. They had to reassign those people to cover a classroom, so those students were not getting the services that they needed. There have been a number of times where we've had to cancel professional development activities because we did not have substitute teachers to cover. And so we looked into Kelly Services as an option. Our fill rate has been 74%. We are working with Kelly Services to target 90%. And quite honestly, I hope we can do even better than that. But we're going to shoot for 90%. And it's very important for us to consider all the benefits. And I sent an email to our substitute teachers, and I outlined the why, which I just explained to you. I shared the benefits, which, right now we're talking about increasing the fill rate, but we called a number of school corporations, and they all said, yeah, that's how they started too. They were all focused on getting that fill rate up, but they also realized a number of other benefits that they did not anticipate. We have a number of staff throughout the corporation that handle the substitute teacher program, the secretaries in the morning who sometimes have to try to get on the phone and get somebody to come in and cover a classroom, and our treasurer and our payroll clerk, and just a number of people. And so the corporations all talked about how it really helped a number of their staff members who had responsibilities related to substitute teacher, supporting the substitute teacher program. So one of the benefits for RBB, that not all other corporations have that same benefit, is that we use the same software for reporting and accepting substitute teacher jobs. Some other school corporations, that was a big learning curve for everybody. They had to learn a new system. We don't have to use same system. Our substitute teachers are going to, they're not going to see much change at all, except the fact that their paycheck is going to come from Kelly Services. They're going to accept jobs like they've always been able to accept the jobs. They are going to be able to go into the same schools, see the same people, work with the same students. I met with a couple substitute teachers, and one of them mentioned that fact precisely. This was actually the substitute teacher I talked to another sub who had since moved to Florida, but she said she worked for Kelly Services, and she said, you guys won't notice a difference. And so that gave me a great assurance. I want to be able to still take care of our substitute teachers. Yes, they technically will be employed by Kelly Services, but we want to make sure they feel part of the RBB family, and we're going to do some things to make sure they feel that way. But our substitute teachers through Kelly Services, they'll have an opportunity for benefits. They will have an opportunity for financial incentives. Kelly Services will often pay a teacher and say, if you work for every Friday between Thanksgiving and Christmas, you'll earn an additional incentive. I think that's a really cool thing to do. Teachers will still, if they just want to work elementary, if they just want to work at EPS or the junior high or whatever, they could still be that precise. So they don't have to work for another corporation. They could still choose how they want to work. Some people sub because they like the flexibility, that they may not want to have to work every day of the week. They just may want to work on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They could still do that. Kelly Services will not limit the number of days somebody wants to work, so they could work every day of the week if they wanted to. We will still be able to continue our retiree insurance program. Now those folks, I think there's 2 or 3 of them right now, they actually won't be Kelly Services, they will just sub for us. They'll still go on ASOP and get jobs like everybody else, but they will not be a Kelly Service employee. Those are people who've retired and took the option of working to have insurance. I still want to invite any of the substitute teachers to come and talk to me individually. Initially, I had planned on having a meeting to talk with all the substitute teachers, but when I actually sat down and started looking at dates and times, it occurred to me probably not going to be able to get them all here at the same time. So I thought an email explaining everything, everybody gets the same message at the same time, and then they're still welcome to come in and talk to me. I put that in the letter. So if you approve it tonight, sometime over the next few months, we will start meeting with Kelly Services to work on a rollout plan. We will have meetings specifically with the substitute teachers, and we'll be able to talk to them about training. That's another thing I just didn't mention earlier. We'll be able to increase the training that we provide to substitute teachers. And I've had enough meetings with Kelly Services that, and they've made pretty much everything that we have talked to them about and said, well, can we do this? Can we make that change? We want to make sure that the education level of our subs stays with what we have right now. They accommodate every time. And when I was talking to the other school corporations, they all talked about how if a substitute teacher was struggling, how they were able to work very well with Kelly Services to provide that particular sub some extra training so they can be successful. You know, our responsibility is to make sure that the education process flows without interruption. I feel like that's my job, to make sure that happens. And I really think we owe it to our students, our classroom teachers, and even our substitute teachers to go with Kelly Services as an option. Now, we're going to monitor this. I do anyways. Every day, one of the first things I do in the morning is I look at the number of positions that are filled and how many are unfilled. And I'll continue to do that. And we'll, with Matt is very good statistician. And believe me, he's going to monitor this and he's going to track it and make sure that that fill rate is up where we want it to be. If we have problems, we won't be married to Kelly Services forever. We want to do what's right for RBB. We want to give it a good test, give it our best effort, but in the end, if we have to do something else, we'll come up with another plan. But tonight, that's my recommendation, to approve the agreement with Kelly Services. You have an Exhibit A in front of you, because if you're the original one that was sent in the board packet, we since took out item number 3 on that. So this reflects, I wanted you to see the one you're approving. So.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Second?
And Jerry, we'll start with this. Did the fall, you say, or?
Yes.
It'll be roll out in the fall. Okay, that's good.
I want to say just one thing about Exhibit A. It does say the pricing in Exhibit A is confidential and proprietary to Kelly, except as required by applicable law. We agree not to disclose the contents of Exhibit A, but we are a public body. We are adopting it at a public meeting. It is a public record, so it is accepted by applicable law. It is not confidential. So just FYI.
Thank you.
I know that the fill rates is a major issue that we have. My family having some teachers, it is very difficult when they have other classes that split up and come to their class, and trying to make sure that they stay engaged with those students as well as their own, and the teachers aren't always doing exactly the same thing every day. So that does make it difficult. I like the fact that the requirements that we have for the education for our substitute teachers will still stay the same. We're not going with lesser qualified people. We're keeping the qualifications up. Because of us unable to be able to provide health insurance, we do have to limit the days of our substitutes. That's going to go away. So like you said, students or substitutes that would like to work all week long can work all week long. And I think that'll help with some of that fill rate as well. And Dr. Sanders said he's welcome for substitutes to come and see him. He is extremely approachable. Don't worry about it. Just go see him, talk to him, and he'll do his best to explain things to you and hear what you have to say. So we appreciate all the hard work that's gone in this. I know it's not easy to make a change like this, but
Change is difficult, but it's been a team effort.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to the substitutes, I've talked to several myself, and know that we all have put in a lot of work. Dr. Sanders put in a lot of work. We went through everything to make sure that we were trying to make the best decisions for you and our corporation, but most of all for our students and our teachers. So our decision wasn't a quick decision. We've all looked at it extensively, but know that we truly support you and we want the best for you. We want you to know that we love you in our corporation, and we're willing to do what we can to help provide better things for you. So
I want to just kind of echo that too. I never paid attention when I was working at the high school because I always just took it for granted.
Mr. Yulls knows, we always had, I never had to worry about subs at the high school. The high school subs were a lot easier to get than the other grade levels, and by talking to some of the other level administrators, I realized how much of a problem it is, and it makes sense. So hopefully this is a way we might be able to increase our fill rate and maybe have a good partnership with our current subs and the New Kelly services.
One of the things that some of the subs have said to me is asked about the increasing the pay rate, and every school corporation that we talked to, that was one of the questions I asked. Did you try that first? And they said they had, and it didn't have any impact. Now, we still, just like any other, we may down the road increase the pay rate for subs, but that doesn't help with the fill rate.
Anything further? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Now we have a consideration of the preschool rates for EECC.
Yes, I'd like to ask Matt Wooden to come up, our Director of Preschool at EECC, and he's going to share his thoughts on the consideration of pay rate.
Okay. Well, you know, it's when you're thinking about rates for preschool or any other service, you're always walking that fine line, between undervaluing and overvaluing your product. And it's my estimation as we compare our preschool rates to comparable preschools in the area that currently we're undervaluing our product. The pursuit of level 2 advancement on path to quality and then eventually level 3 doesn't come, of course, without some degree of cost. As I mentioned in the proposal that you have in front of you, there's a cost to supplying a viable curriculum, which is a major step in level 2 advancement, and then must be maintained, of course, for level 3. And there are also staffing pieces related to the education and the professional development of staff that are especially pertinent to level 3 advancement. Level 2 advancement as well, but level 3 advancement in particular. And so as we compared our costs, and by we I mean Dr. Sanders and Matt and I, over the last couple months as we looked through the numbers, we found ourselves far below most area preschools in terms of rates. And so I'm proposing a modest, what I consider to be a fairly modest increase in our rates for this coming year. If you've had a chance to compare prices on those documents, you'll see that I've tried to create an apples-to-apples comparison between RBB and other area preschools, both private and public. I'm proposing that our half-day students change from a rate of $10 a day to $12.50 a day, so $25 for a full day, if you want to compare to what other area preschools are charging for a full day at preschool, and to raise our full day rate from $22.50 a day to $25 a day, so that our rates are consistent across our half-day and our full-day students. That's the proposal in a nutshell. But I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
And then do you want to talk about how we're going to ask for a down payment or?
Yes. So the other significant change is to begin what's a relatively common and accepted practice in area daycares and preschools, which is to ask for a deposit at enrollment. That deposit is usually collected for one of two reasons. Either it's collected as an advance on that first tuition payment for the coming school year, as a way to add a degree of accountability to families who are registering for preschool a significant amount of time in advance. In our case, enrollment will begin in early March. Of course, those students won't be on site until August. And historically, EECC has had some difficulty in, there's been a drop-off. That enrollment process happens, people enroll without putting a deposit down. they don't show up on the first day of school. You call, you can't get a hold of them. They don't show up on the second week of school, and you're getting weeks behind at that point trying to track that family down to see if they're still planning on enrolling their student or actually having their student on site. A deposit just adds a degree of accountability to that process. Some area centers also collect that deposit, and it's refunded if a student leaves and the family gives due notice of leaving. So if a preschool or a center has a policy that it requires a family to give 2 weeks notice before the family unenrolls from the preschool, and they do so, then they get that deposit back. I prefer having it be a credit to that first week's enrollment to those processes because it's a more common practice for us. We have more students who come and stay than come and leave. And so to have that deposit count toward their tuition, I think is a way to make it a little more palatable that they're paying that deposit. And also, I think it better serves us as a district. We have very few students unenroll. So.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Any questions or?
Hey, I just had a quick question. So on that deposit, if they do not show up the first day, we will refund it or we will keep that deposit? Is it a non-refundable deposit?
That's a good question. We'd have to write that into our policy. The most common practice is that is non-refundable. Once it's credited toward tuition, but it's not a refundable deposit.
I think it defeats the purpose.
Correct. That's what I was, wasn't quite spelled out though. I was just curious. And then once we attain level 3, that's where I'm a little confused. Or do we get more reimbursement? Is that the theory?
Once we achieve level 3 on Path to Quality, we are eligible for On My Way pre-K vouchers, which means that students who financially, I'm not sure I'm answering your question correctly, but students who qualify financially to receive that reimbursement, the school then receives 100% tuition for that student from the state. Am I answering, is that your question?
Yeah, Debbie, we explained to you last week. I was just kind of confused on how that works, so that makes sense then. Okay.
I have a question. Do they pay? When do they pay?
At the time of enrollment. So
No,
when
weekly or monthly?
Oh, sorry.
or
When is billing is done weekly through SmartCare.
Oh, okay. So is that Monday or Friday? Do they
I believe
prepay
it's
for the week.
Yeah, good question. I believe it's Friday, but I
would
would
think
want
Monday.
to get an official response from that for you. So, yeah.
I had to use that policy.
Any further questions?
No.
All right. We do have the motion, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now consideration of latchkey rates.
That's me too. So this is only preschool latchkey. This is not related to our elementary latchkey. So two things have come to our attention this year. One is somewhat anecdotal. Our preschool latchkey program is relatively small. It serves about 10, 12 students, not usually at the same time, frequently about 6 to 8 students at a time. But if you noticed, and this is probably not terribly surprising, that behaviors among students who are at latchkey from 6:30 in the morning through most of the preschool day are predictably more difficult and defiant because it's a long day for those preschool students. Some of those preschool students are dropped off at 6:30 in the morning, a relatively small number, of course, but are dropped off at 6:30 in the morning and remain on site with us until 6 in the evening when latchkey services expire. And so those are families that are using RBB as more of a daycare model, right? They're dropped off at the very start of the workday or on the way to the workday and picked up afterwards, sometimes significantly afterwards. That's an anecdotal observation. A more crucial observation that we made as we started to play around with latchkey hours this year is that we discovered that our latchkey director for preschool, it's a salaried position that's contracted for 25 hours a week. She's currently working a 28-hour a week work week based on our current latchkey preschool hours. So there's two things that we sought to address by adapting the latchkey hours for next year. So this proposal is twofold. One is to modify the hours of the preschool latchkey program to begin at 7 in the morning instead of 6:30, and to end at 5 in the evening instead of 6 in the evening, so to shorten it to a more developmentally appropriate day. Brenda Whitaker and I have been in significant conversation about that over the last couple months. We understand that while there may be extreme cases where a family might not be able to participate in the preschool program if we shorten those latchkey hours from 7 to 5, I think those will be rare. This year it would have affected 2 to 3 families. We've spoken about a contingency plan to potentially allow those students to participate in the elementary latchkey day, which is a little bit longer if we feel like the circumstances warrant. Because that's about it, next year's proposal is to offer latchkey services for approximately 73% of the time that we are currently offering services. As a goodwill gesture to our families, the latchkey rates that you have in front of you have been adjusted proportionally. They're adjusted to 73% of their current total, so that our rate schedule is remaining the same. Parents are paying the same dollar amount per hour of service that they'd be paying this year. And it also gets our latchkey director back into her contractual agreement with the district. Thoughts or questions related to the preschool latchkey proposal?
I move approval.
Second.
I'll second it.
Moved and second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Our next item is consideration to dispose of surplus technology equipment. Dr. Sanders?
Yes, so we've brought this to your attention before, and we have some additional technology equipment that we would like to ask the board to declare as surplus. The expense of the labor, equipment, and fuel required to dispose of this equipment exceeds the value, so we ask your approval.
I move approval.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we move on to personnel. We have A, resignations, retirements, non-renewals, leaves, and terminations 1 through 6, and B, appointments and transfers 1 through 9. Do we have a motion?
I move approval for both A and B.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
I would like to recognize Mr. Carmichael. Would you like to do that now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I bet each one of you will probably also want to say something. I've had the pleasure of working with many, many amazing teachers, and some who are very good at, they have that unique ability to take a student at one point and grow them in many exciting and special ways. And Mr. Carmichael has that talent. And we know by his annual presentations with the trips that he takes with his students that he he really has a passion and a heart for those kids. And I just, as just a professional educator, I enjoy working with someone like Jeff Carmichael. So I've tried over the years to tell people they like that they can't retire. But nobody ever listens to me. So, but I just wanted to recognize Mr. Carmichael tonight.
Any comments, questions from the? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Dr. Sanders, we have miscellaneous and informational items.
Yes, so we had a contest of champions last weekend, and I'm always excited to watch the kids. They're fun to watch, and it was a good Saturday to be able to do that. But I also watched the parents and all the volunteers, and everywhere I walked during Contest of Champions, there was a volunteer doing something. And I think that's a testament to the parents and our school corporation. I just get a special insight when I think about, and I watch parents at ball games. I watch them at show choir or whatever, and you could just see it probably get me a little emotional, but you could just see the love that they have for their children. And I mean, I was there too. Only I was a soccer parent, so I didn't have to go to do all that Mr. Kerr has done. But at any rate, I just want to recognize all of the volunteers. I think there were 80 volunteers. Is that about right? So I just want to mention them. We have our wrestlers. I went to the wrestling meet last Saturday, not this past, but the weekend before. And so Lane Deckard, Cash Turner, Matthew Archer, and Reese Novak have had a really great season. And Cash Turner made it to state competition, so congratulate him. Swim sectional is on Thursday. The gymnastics sectional at Columbus East is on February 28th. Senior night for boys basketball is on February 21st. And Edgewood will be hosting the boys basketball sectionals March 3rd, 4th, 6th, and 7th.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to your superintendent's report.
Okay. Now, I usually try to keep my report to one that I cheated and did the back page. So it's still one page, but
Oh, I didn't see that.
I'm really excited about an upcoming event that we're going to have. It's called Soup with the Soup. It's a focus group of parents. And I'm sorry, the date on there is February 27th, not the 28th. But on the 27th at noon, we'll have one group of parents, and we'll have soup and then talk. And at 6 o'clock that night, we'll have group number 2. And the topic of this focus group is communication. And I will have a number of questions that I'll be asking for their input. And it's just going to be a conversation. So looking forward to that, and learning from our parents about, what do they really see as effective communication? Because in the survey, we got the whole range that we don't have enough communication. Some said we have too much, and by that they mean they get something from me, from their school, from their principal, from their teacher, and it's just too much. So I want to find out how can we consolidate that and still be effective. I'll report back to you about that in the future. And mental health, we'll continue to work with our mental health team. Since we started with Youth First, we partner with Youth First through the Lilly Comprehensive Counseling Grant. And since we started with them, we have some new staff, Jennifer Anderson, Tom Norris, although he was here as assistant principal at the time. So we had a very productive meeting a week or two ago, just kind of getting all the partners together and getting to know one another. Now, we did have our social worker with Youth First to resign, so we're actually searching for a new social worker who works mainly at the junior high, but also a little bit at the intermediate school. The TIMS grant is progressing right along. They're trying to fill the positions that we had written into the grant. The postdoctorate level position has been recommended for hire. They've posted I'm sorry, I see a typo. I apologize for that. It's posted 2 psychology positions through RBB's website and Psychologists Network. They are also working on researching curriculum and training opportunities. Adult and Child is a mental health agency that provides skills specialists and therapists. So we have therapists in place at the high school, the junior high, and then we have one sharing at EPS and EIS. And we also have a skills specialist in place at EIS. Tom Norris has been amazing. He's been such a great, not only to all of our schools, actually the primary, intermediate, and the junior high, in so many ways. And I was meeting with him this week, and or last week, and he's now working with families to try to. They have to do an intake before they can start working with students, and so he's trying to coordinate that and get parents to come in and developing strategies to get them to come in. So they could, the therapist could take down the information that they need to get the process started. Our SEL team meets monthly, and we've been working on training for restorative practice and also TBRI, trust-based relational intervention, and it really helps, designed to help really anybody who works with students to be able to work with students to mend and repair relationships that might have been broken. It develops, really in order for a child to be in a position to learn and to grow, they have to be able to trust their teacher, their bus driver, their principal. And so all this is designed to make sure that they're in an environment where they feel safe. Okay, and then real quick on construction projects. For our current projects, we're still working on some issues with the stage floor. We've had some bubbling up where the seams are, and so we're working on a solution for that. The projection screen will be replaced and raised this summer. Additional monitors inputs have just been released and will be ongoing as a space is available. There will be a meeting on the communication system, the connectivity with that. Is that next Tuesday? Not tomorrow. Next a week from tomorrow, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Baseball complex, a sod has been put down and will be rolled one more time before the start of the season. A backstop and dugouts are complete. The backstop pads are in storage waiting for the start of the season. Site work is complete and will be seeded in the spring. The bleachers are on schedule for March 1st. To be installed and should be completed by March 15th. And the additional work on the press box has been completed. Up at the connector, the blinds have been installed. They have some more cabinetry that need to be installed at the intermediate school, and that should be done sometime this month. There's a drain by the connector that's not working properly, so they will do some work with that. And the impact drywall, they did a mock-up of that by the elevator at the connector, and it looked really, really good. So that'll be put throughout the connector. And then for upcoming projects, bids for the renovation to the junior high, the preschool connector, and the HVAC upgrades. Those bids will be due March 19th, and those advertisements have been sent to the paper.
Thank you very much. RBBEA comments. Mr. Yules?
Geez, of all nights, I got 4 items. Man. Thank you, Dr. Sanders. I'm just teasing. Some of his comments I'm going to echo. I'm in a fortunate position teaching long enough. I see a lot of these kids, band kids, choir kids, wrestlers, gymnasts. They're great kids we have, and they're busy all the time. So, but it's fun to watch them and get a little bit of extra. You see a different side of them when they do all that stuff. So it's really cool to notice all that. And like I said, I'm very fortunate. Kelly Services, yeah, thank you for pursuing that. Really wasn't sure what I thought about it at first, because it is change, it's something different. I wasn't convinced. The proof will be in the pudding, but, we have to do something, and we've had trouble with subs for years. As part of my job, I hear it from my teachers all the time, especially elementary. It's just always hard to get people to fill those jobs. That's a real job. I always joke to my high school teachers, but it's not a joke. We wouldn't last a week down there. There's no doubt about it. It's big time work. And it is hard to find those positions, so got to try something. I hope it works out, and we'll go from here. Mostly just some personnel comments, to be honest. It's one of those nights. Marcy Jones, as Mr. Sieglin said, she's an outside-the-box thinker. And I've known them ever since they moved into our community years ago because their two daughters played tennis for me. And she is. She's kind of one of those why not thinkers. And I think we need those people. Yes, she teaches, she addresses the standards, she makes sure her kids are exposed to the material, but she balances the other half of that. And I think you got to have that, especially probably at junior high. I've never taught there, but I'm sure it's very important as they start growing up and start questioning things. You mentioned Cash Turner. I have Cash in class. He's a freshman. And as Mr. Ratliff says, our first freshman makes the state finals. So that's pretty cool. It's neat to see those things. So excited for him and wish him well. I'll be teasing him all week. And I saw, obviously, Jeff Carmichael. I'm just going to tell you a fair warning right now. I saw that on the board packet when Robin sent it over, and it just came up in passing at my lunch with some of my teachers. I said, well, it looks official. He put in his letter, and he was at my doorstep an hour and a half. I can say this here, it's a small crowd, and he's not going to watch cats. So he was at my doorstep an hour and a half because somebody congratulated him, and he was red. He was not happy. He goes, I don't want anybody to know about this. And I'm thinking, well, it's public record. He says, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. So I'm just telling you all right now, don't go talk to him and tell him that until about the end, or I'll tell him I didn't say anything. It's public record, but
Email and ask him permission to
Talk about it.
I didn't. It's public record. I'm going to be here. Like I said, he's not going to watch this. But I tell you what, I started my first 8 years teaching right beside him, and he and I are very different in many ways, but at the same time, I've respected him like no other, and still do. He is hardcore. There's no doubt about that. So, yeah, he'll butt heads with anybody, but it's because he believes in what he does. You guys have seen it, obviously, but I've seen it up close and personal a lot. A great guy, big shoes to fill, no doubt about it. So I just wanted to say kudos to him. And there you go. Don't say anything to him for a while. So all in all, we're going to keep trucking along. 4 weeks to spring break and keep our kids rolling. We got testing coming up and all that good stuff. Won't bore you with that. So thank you. We'll see you next month.
Thank you, Mr. Hills. Okay, we'll just start with Mr. Tucker.
Well, thanks for putting this together tonight, Dr. Sanders, and I kind of echo almost verbatim what Mr. Ewell said about the congrats to the young man that's going to the state finals as a freshman.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
That's I've been in the state finals of wrestling a few times, and when those lights go on, it's pretty amazing, pretty cool. And I wasn't a wrestling guy growing up. I didn't have a lot of success for wrestling. That's why I stuck with basketball. But it's really neat. So it's going to be a fun day for him. Congrats to Miss Jones, and I really appreciate her 4 kids today. That was a really good presentation for, especially for 6th and 7th graders. I want to thank Mr. Wicker for Colby for coming in and enjoyed chatting with you last week. So thanks for sharing your thoughts there, and hats off to Mr. Carmichael. I mean, when Mr. Ewell mentioned the red face, I flash back to some times where I talked to Mr. Carmichael, and he just takes up. So he's got a heart of gold, and he loves kids, and that's the kind of folks that we have here at RBB, and I wish him nothing but the best in retirement. I know he's thought this through, I'm sure, and I'm sure he's got a lot of other passions to chase as he moves on to the next chapter in life. So,
Mr. Jacobs.
Well, first of all, Kobe, thank you for your time and coming out and meeting with me. I was really glad to talk to you, and I think you're an amazing young man, and you just keep going with your passions and follow them, and he'll do great things.
Thank you.
So Mustang moment, Miss Jones is my son's teacher. So when I saw her out there, I was like, oh, that's so exciting. So she does some amazing things with these kids, and you know, history, social studies is kind of one of those subjects that not all kids are really invested in. That is not a subject that is something that entices them. But I will tell you, my son is one of those students, but now that he's been in her class and because of this type of environment, he loves it, and he looks forward to going to her class and is just wonderful. She's an amazing teacher. And I'm so glad that she brought her students. We all love seeing our students come in and talk to us. It means a lot to us. We like hearing from them. They're very important. Mr. Carmichael, congratulations. We're excited for your retirement. We are going to miss you in the corporation. And it is a lot of big shoes to fill in there. So that's wonderful. I hope he has a great retirement. Again, I want to reach out to our substitute teachers. I am excited to see what Kelly can do for you and what they can provide for you. And I think that, Dr. Sanders, I appreciate everything that you've put into really getting to know Kelly, and inside and out, you worked to get everything that they need, and I appreciate that so much. So that's it. Thanks.
Mr. Hero?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I also want to thank for being involved, and it's just wonderful that you trying to improve things, and I really appreciate that. I want to echo just what everybody said about Jeff Carmichael. If you've ever played basketball against Jeff Carmichael, you know how intense he can be. So, but he's a great, no doubt, he's a great teacher. But I just want to make a comment here. I've been on the board, I think it'll be 20 years in August. And I've never been so excited about this corporation as I am right now. I mean, the board is solid, the administration is solid, our principals are solid. And I just can't tell you how tickled I am that we're in that position right now. So I'll end with that.
Mrs. Mary?
Well, I agree with everything everyone else said, but I just want to throw it out there that Scott Mengy has set the bar high for former Edgewood graduates to donate some money, find a cause at the school. It's just a really awesome thing that he got a group of people together to do that. And for a great cause, new baseball scoreboard, there are a lot of things that it's hard for the board to scrape the money up and get it to do things that it's really nice for the kids to get, and donations is awesome, all of them. But that was, since he's a graduate, I thought I'd throw that out there.
Very good.
Very good. Thank you. One of these days I'll go first, so I just don't have to say I echo everything everybody said, which I do. And Mr. Wicker, it's Tuesday, not Wednesday. We're meeting. Yeah. No, next week. Tuesday next week. I'll be here for the auditorium headphone check, and so I'll meet you then. The 6th and 7th graders and Ms. Jones, again, kudos to them. They just look so at home presenting tonight, and that really was great to see. The donations. Mr. Carmichael, one of the things that we enjoy, or at least I enjoy, is graduation, Mustang moment, Mr. Carmichael. Those are kind of some of the top things that I enjoy being on the board and being able to listen to and get that kind of information from and see what wonderful things is going on here. And again, I do want to thank the Monroe County Redevelopment Commission again, talking about the ROI and where we're headed, and again, the fact that they have been so supportive with the grant and providing that foundation for STEM and STEAM. So we really appreciate them. So with that, we'll adjourn, and there'll be board signatures, and have a wonderful evening.